all recording? Okay. All right. Yep.
All right, I will call the February 13th, 2023 meeting of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors to order. I will announce the board did meet in executive session prior to this meeting. We discussed one land development litigation matter and one personnel matter. With that being said, Mr. Nease, please do the roll call.
Mr. Altieri,
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lightcap,
Here.
Mr. Partridge. Here. Mr. Russo. Here. Ms. Chanlis is not here at this time. Yeah. Ms. Chanlis is here. I will correct the record. Your solicitor and manager here, your engineer was required to be at another township tonight.
Understood. We'll now move down to section 4, moment of silence. And we'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll move down to section 5.1. Consider approving the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
No need to. No, it's all right.
Okay.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We'll now move down to section 6 for public comment on agenda items only. I will first note that I did receive in the public comment Dropbox, public comment from a Gina Capello at 165 Mansion Road with regards to the agenda item that is on for 15.5. She was the basis of the public comment was questions regarding the traffic calming policy and her position on the traffic calming policy, which she was against speed bumps on Mansion Drive or Mansion Road. That's the only public comment that I received from the Dropbox. But if there's individuals who are here this evening who have any public comment related to an agenda item, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and let your public comment be heard. Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to.
I know there's some people here for things on the agenda, but they might be waiting for that agenda item to come up. Is there going to be adequate time, that time as well, or?
So what I would say is that if you want to speak about an agenda item to come up tonight, to come up now and do it, unless you're here for the conditional use application, at which point we'll do that during the normal process of the conditional use hearing. But if you're here for a regular agenda item, now is your opportunity to come up, state your name and address for the record, and provide your public comment.
It's Mike Mayo. I live on 95 Robert corner of Sawmill. Robert Block. Comment for the stop sign on the stop sign would go directly in front of my house. Really, I just wanted to express that balance. The stop sign is really wanted to express my thinking about this same way we did with speed bumps. Understanding the impact of stop signs doesn't impact safety.
Thank you.
Can you give me your name and address again real quick, please?
Michael Mayo, 95 Roberts Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. We'll now move down to section 7.1. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the January 23rd, 2023 meeting?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 8, resolutions of recognition. 8.1, consider approving resolution 2023-05, National Engineers Week, and I will defer to the engineer on the board, Mr. Russo.
Whereas the week of February 19th through
25th, 2023 will be observed as National Engineers Week with the theme Creating Future. And whereas engineers recognize how they play a vital role in innovating solutions to global challenges that impact future generations, and whereas engineers are dedicated to ensuring a diverse and well-educated future engineering workforce by increasing understanding of and interest in the engineering and technology careers, and whereas engineers are encouraging our young math and science students to realize the practical power of knowledge, and whereas we look for more than ever to the engineers and their knowledge and skills to meet the challenges of the 21st century. Now therefore be resolved that the Newtown Township hereby joins the nation in honoring and celebrating the achievements of engineers during Engineers Week held February 19th through the 16th, 2023, adopted this 13th day of February 2023 by the Board of Supervisors, Newtown Township.
Is that your motion, Supervisor Russo?
Yes.
Is there a second? Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Move down to section 9, presentations. 9.1, we have a presentation this evening from Heather LaPierre for Kids Against Hunger Food Pantry, the food pantry donation box. Heather, if you can come up. This is while we're setting up the technology aspect of this, I'll say, and I'm sure I'm probably taking some of the presentation. Heather started this program about 8 years ago, and so far has served over 7 million meals, 9.8 million meals. She is now endeavored into doing a food pantry that'll serve exclusively residents of the Marple Newtown community. We connected via social media. Someone had us get connected, and so we were able to touch base. They have food pantry drop boxes up in Marple, and we thought it would be a good idea to have something in Newtown Township. So that is a good framing of what you're going to be presenting on. So just make sure that microphone is on and the floor is yours.
Packed 4.2 million meals, and in 7 years, we've packed close to 10 million meals with thousands of volunteers. In her basement in 2015, realtor Heather LaPierre created the Philadelphia chapter of Kids Against Hunger, an organization that packages nutrient-dense meals to help feed the hungry. We package dry food and then send it to where it's needed most. So we send it abroad, we send it locally. We have shipped food to Haiti, Nepal, Nicaragua. We sent over 250,000 meals to the Ukraine.
Зараз знаходимося на гуманітарному таборі. Мене звати Іван Сікон. Я багато з вас абсолютно не знайомий, але зайду нас, будемо разом досягати перемоги.
But 90% of the food that we pack here all stays local. So we send our food to different community food banks and food pantries. Those bags are amazing. The Kids Against Hunger food, it helps us tremendously in order to feed over 250 families a week. When we package food, we bring in teams of volunteers. We typically have 30 to 50 volunteers per 2-hour shift. We work in an assembly line, scooping the 4 separate ingredients into funnels. And we walk them down the line, and then they get weighed, sealed, and then boxed up. And each box has 36 bags. Each bag feeds 6 people, so it's 216 meals per box. Whenever we have a box packed, we ring a bell, everybody cheers. It's a fun place to be with kids that want to keep coming back because they know that they're part of something bigger. And we often say that we're feeding 2 types of hunger. We're feeding the hunger of the families and the individuals that receive our food. But we're also feeding that inner hunger of giving back.
One, I'm packing the meals that I know are gonna go to somebody that can use them. But the other side of the coin is it feels great to do it. I don't know anybody that leaves here without smiling.
We always say, come in as strangers and leave as friends. I walk in those stores and it's just, I have a purpose.
That purpose drives Heather to do whatever it takes to feed the hungry.
We organize the shipping, the receiving, making sure that we have all the ingredients for the meals, the setup, the prep, driving the 26-foot trucks. I am the only one to drive the truck. So it's me. We got a few people and we need a truck. And all right, I'll jump in and learn it.
Poor Heather, she goes to bed thinking about it, how she can help other people, because she has big goals.
Our goal is to pack 1 million meals a month.
Communities need people like Heather to say, this needs to be done. This is what we can do if we work together.
I feel like when they get that food, they know that somebody somewhere cares enough about them to want to help. She does not want any child or any family to go hungry. I believe that there's kindness in everybody. And when I see this room filled with volunteers and everybody keeps coming, I just feel like I have a bigger purpose here. And I feel like I have a meaning in life. And I believe that I am where I am today because of this place.
Awesome. So if there's any questions from the board, we'll entertain them now. The one thing I do want to note, is I think I failed to mention this, but you guys are based in Marple, right, in the industrial center? And that's where all the video that we just saw, all the packaging takes place in there in Marple. Yep. Any questions from the board?
Yes, so if we have some high school students that might want to get involved in this, contact you. Okay. What time does it typically run your operation packaging? Okay, great. Okay, great. Thank you.
No, I was just gonna say my daughter actually was, she just graduated from high school last year, but she packed food several times and really enjoyed it. It was a great experience for her.
I think tonight the goal is that if the board is so inclined that we will pass a motion to authorize the township manager and public works director to find a location on the township property. And then we'll have to probably enter into a license agreement with our solicitor for the insurance purposes and all the other jazz that fun and excitement that comes along with that. Do you have anyone to add to that, Steve? Are you okay?
I don't know that you need to, I mean, maybe they need to pass a motion to pass the agreement, that would be something they have to, but if it's just a matter of us coming up with a location, just give us direction, we'll do that, and then at the next meeting, we'll be ready. You know, we'll let Rich work on the agreement, and then we'll come back with you with the location, and you can approve everything at that time.
So you
If
just
that
need
makes
author,
sense.
you just need direction to start drafting the agreement.
Yes.
Sorry, authorization to start drafting the agreement, or authorization to start moving forward for the location.
I think if you just give us direction that you want us to find you a location and you want us to get you an agreement, I think that's all we need.
And you don't need a motion for that?
I don't think we need a motion just to do that part of it.
Is
Because we're
everybody
not
in agreement?
Spending anything and we're not
Yes.
committing anything. We'll bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll move down to section 10, appointment to boards and commissions. We're going to drop down to section 16, which is old business. So the appointment to the open boards, commissions, and committee positions, library board supervisor Russo.
So first 1 to 3 year term expiring. First 1 to 3 year term expiring 12/31/25, Sandra McCann. The second 1 to 3 year term expiring 12/31/25 is Erica Swenson Danowitz. Those are the people I propose.
Is there a second? Motion was made by Supervisor Russo as the liaison, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? The only thing I'll note is that these were the individuals that the library board had interviewed. The way that their charter is written is that they actually propose people to the board. Supervisor Russo has reviewed that information, and so this is the formality. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We'll now move down to section 11 reports. 11.1 report from the Township Manager, Mr. Nease.
Yes, just a couple quick things. First, I would bring your attention, our geese are back. And so if you recall last year, George had worked with our animal warden to address the geese population at Drexel Lodge. And it actually worked pretty well. We actually got rid of most of the geese during the year. But when you stop doing it, they come back quickly. And so the recommendation would be for us to go back and move forward. I believe it's something we have in the budget. George and I talked. And so we're going to go ahead and move forward with that unless the board has any objection, but we just wanted you to be aware that we were doing that. The next piece that I want to share with you, and it's written here, a couple quick things, and there's more dates coming in, and I'll be providing those as we go along at different meetings. But the Parks and Rec committee is wanting to put together a family fun day at Drexel Lodge, and that will be on May 6th. And that's from 10 until 3. I believe they're bringing in a music group and have, a couple different things lined up for the kids to participate in. And then very similar to what they did last year at Newby Park, they had like a chalk day and different kinds of events for kids there at Newby Park on April 1st from 1 until I guess till whenever. I guess it doesn't have a closing time, but I think it's usually a couple hours. And then if Saturday happens to be a rain day, then or if it rains on Saturday, then the rain date will be Sunday, the 2nd. So share that just to let you know, all of the committees are getting their dates together. These were 2 that were kind of coming up. We'll have some dates, particularly in April for Arbor Day and some other things like that that'll be coming before you as well. But we're going to keep putting those things out, putting it up on a calendar, a community calendar, so everybody knows what the dates are coming up.
Perfect. Any questions for the Township Manager? All right, we'll move down to payment, section 12. 12.1. Can I get a motion to approve the $2,000 reimbursement for a police officer relative to a medical expense as stipulated in the police collective bargaining agreement?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 12.2, can I get a motion approving the $3,495 payment to Intercounty Investigations and Solutions Incorporated for the background check associated with the new finance director?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 12.3, can I get a motion approving the $7,147.75 payment to Lafayette College for the search conducted to identify the new finance director?
So moved.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
You can.
Both of the number 12.2 and 12.3 were not included in your payment, are included here for approval payments, but they were not in the bills. We would be cutting those checks off cycle. And so you'll actually see them on your bills payment next time, but we want to go ahead. We wanted to get those payments.
That's good. We'll now move to section 13. I reviewed the bills for this evening, so I will make a motion to approve the 2022 bills on check register 2022A dated February 13th, 2023, totaling $194,550.39. Is there a second? Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. 13.2, I will make a motion to approve the 2023 bills on check register 2023A dated February 13th, 2023, totaling $153,222.68. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Robert Slycap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.3, I will make a motion to approve the bills on check register 2023B dated February 13th, 2023, totaling $4,055.96. Is there a second? Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We're actually going to go out of order a little bit. We're going to put the conditional use hearing at the end. So we're going to jump down into the new business, section 15, 15.1. I get a motion to approve the hiring of David Hilbert for a seasonal summer help position at the rate of $21 an hour. The position is budgeted for 12 weeks in the summer. Public Works proposes to use his services for tree care 1 or 2 days per week throughout the year, permissible instead of 5 days / a week for 12 weeks in one season. Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Mr. Neese, do you have anything you want to add to this? Does the board have any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.2, consider approving the, can I get a motion to consider approving the advertisement for the part-time clerical support position in the code department?
So moved.
Motion was made by Supervisor Robert Slycap, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Neese, do you have anything you want to add?
Just that this was in the budget. And so we're just moving forward with that.
Any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.3, can I get a motion to approve the recommendation of the Parks and Recreation to purchase 3 shades to attach to the Brookside Park playground and 1 shade to be installed in the playground seating area at a cost not to exceed the budgeted amount of $18,500. Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Neese, do you have anything you want to add?
I just would add a couple things real quick. Is there an attachment on this one? Would you bring that up? George has been working with them, and so if you will see, the bottom picture is our playground without the shades or the pat or the roof sections on it. We would look at putting 2 roof sections similar to the one in the top left-hand corner, and then in the center will be one like the one that's kind of the center picture in the top. And it would actually be those colors. It would be green and the beige, kind of matching the rest of the play set. The shade itself will be more like the one that's in the right-hand corner. Over the seating area will be almost like a big umbrella kind of thing. And so you had actually approved a kind of a design last year that were 3 shades that were more cloth in nature. George has found a playground company that would actually come back and do this addition on the playground set itself. And so we actually end up with shade on the playground set itself. So that's the reason why we're back before you again and for your approval in this way. It's in the budget. And it's in the budget, yes.
So George, the things that are being, I guess, I'm sorry. The tops that are being, I guess, retrofitted or installed, that'll keep the equipment, it'll keep it shaded from the kids from it being too hot. correct?
Exactly.
And
That
it'll
was
help
one of the,
protect it as well?
and it will. That was one of the requests of Park and Rec originally, was to try to shade some of the playground set. So this accomplishes both some seating shade and the playground set shade.
Is
And it will protect it too.
Yeah, there's no trees in that part. It's kind of an open, it's flat before you get to where the water or the creek is right there.
Exactly.
Correct. Creek, where the creek is. I know, I think it's great. I think it was long, we needed this for a while down there because it does get pretty hot down there. So thank you. Thank you, George,
Thank
for
you.
the finding those on top of the equipment.
Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.4, can I get a motion to approve the conditional offer of employment to Sean Doyle to fill the open police officer position in the police department contingent on passing all required testing?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Neese, do you have anything you want to add?
Just that Mr. Doyle had gone through our normal process, did very well. And so we are hoping that he passes all the background check stuff that we do. And we would then be back before you for a full hire.
Perfect. Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 15.5, discussion and possible action about traffic calming, excuse me, traffic calming request processing for Mansion Road. So let's actually get a motion in a second and we'll turn this into discussion and we'll take it from there. So is there a motion for this? Actually, it's no motion because we're just doing discussion, excuse me.
Discussion.
Late night. So we'll turn it over to you, Mr. Neese, for discussion and possible action.
So we received a request from a resident on Manton Road about coming in and putting in stop signs. And he was requesting to not have to go through the
Speed
traffic.
bumps.
You mean speed bumps?
Is it-
Yeah.
Speed bumps?
The letters for speed bumps.
Oh, okay. I thought he also requested stop signs.
He did ask for that as well.
And so the part of it was that he was asking for not having to go through the process of the traffic calming policy. So two reasons why I'm here tonight. One is why we put it on the agenda tonight. One is because he's requested that. And two is I just want to confirm from the board's process that we want really any of these requests to go through the traffic calming policy first prior to coming back to the board for recommendation. Mostly because until we start looking at it, we couldn't tell you where the right place is. You know, we wouldn't be able to come back and say, here's where you want a speed table, or here's where maybe a stop sign is warranted based on something that, but we typically say stop signs are not a part of traffic calming. And so, but we didn't want to just assume that the board was going to say no. We wanted to bring it before you to say, yes, they need to go through the traffic calming policy. And then we would be back before you with this at some point.
Seems like we're all in agreement with that recommendation, Mr. Neese. I will actually just ask though, if Mr. Stango or Mr. Talamini are here, if they want to add anything, you can come up to the podium. If not, we were in receipt of your letter dated January 15th, 2023. Okay, looks like you have your
So we'll go through the traffic calming policy. We'll do all the steps that it takes, and then we'll bring the recommendation back to you.
and I think if you can just have something from the township communicated to these two individuals who kind of started this,
we will.
just so they know that we did take it to the board and
Yep.
the board's decision on that. Okay. We'll now move down to 15.6, consider approving the advertisement of ordinance 2023-02, now functioning sprinkler ordinance. Is there a motion?
For approval.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Mr. Sikora or Mr. Neese, if you want to add anything to this?
Okay. So you just want me to explain what this is and
It's up to you if you want it. I didn't know, you were looking at me, so I didn't know if you had something you wanted to add to it or not.
This is just to advertise the ordinance, correct?
to advertise an ordinance. I think the one, the idea was the township had asked me to draft an ordinance related to relief from the requirement to maintain, inspect, test, and operate sprinkler systems in certain houses where there's a known malfunction, where it would be a financial hardship to replace them. The state doesn't require houses to install sprinklers, single-family residences to install sprinklers upon construction. State requires that a waiver form be provided to a prospective purchaser of a to-be-built home, that they have the right to have sprinklers installed, but if they don't want them, they could waive it. Our ordinance, which predated the Uniform Construction Code adoption in township, had sprinklers as a requirement for all new construction. And we still require that, but there were certain houses that were built, one particular neighborhood in particular, where there was a known manufacturing / design defect. So the sprinkler system as a whole has really been identified as defective. And so you have to rip out everything and replace everything in the whole house, major disruption. So this would provide relief for that. There may be other houses in the township. This only applies to single family residents. Multifamily has to have sprinkler no matter what. But for these single family homes that have had sprinklers installed that may have similar problems, you would have to have some sort of criteria as to whether they would be entitled to relief. So what is in here as the starter for discussion, it's really a policy type decision, is what triggers that. So, we have obviously some certified professional has to come in and say this is, a problem, it's designed, installed, or the components are provided that are defective, right? Number two, it would have to cost, it'd have to be an unreasonable expense for that homeowner to undergo. Now, Spring to Point, they had a whole study done. They had a number of people all have the same problem. So it doesn't apply to that section because it's deemed established under this ordinance. But for anybody else in the township, there would have to be some objective measure for the township to say, okay, it's a financial hardship for you to have to fix this. So what was proposed in the ordinance is if it's a $5,000 repair, meaning fixing the system itself would be $5,000, or fixing the system and in connection with any supporting work that would have to be done. So if you have to rip out the ceiling, do a $2,500 repair on the system itself, and then $2,500 to fix the drywall and paint and everything else, that's $5,000. That would be that financial hardship criteria. That was a suggestion. That didn't come from any book or manual. That was like, what's a hardship? So I got a kid in college, $5,000 is a lot of money. So that was put in there for a discussion point for you.
And how long do we have to advertise it for? Just,
Yeah, this is just a
It's
health,
a
safety, and
one-time-
welfare type ordinance. This isn't a zoning thing, so you
Yeah.
don't have to do the 2 successive weeks. We're not changing the we're not lessening any criteria of the Uniform Construction Code, so we don't have to go forward and notify L&I at the state and have weigh-in. So it's really just the normal process of 1 week of advertising and put it on an agenda.
okay, thank you.
Any comments from the board? Mr. Neese, you want to add anything?
I have
will-
nothing to add, only that if you don't like the $5,000, now's probably a good time to say so, because if we advertise and you wanted to go to 10, we would need to re-advertise. That's the only comment I would make.
What's the board's desire? Okay.
Yep.
So 5,000 is the dollar amount. Okay. I will, since I offered it for the last motion as well, if there's anyone who wants to provide public comment on this, you can come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. If not, we're ready to vote.
Good evening. My name is Jim Lanzalato. I live in Springton Point Estates, which is the neighborhood that the solicitor just referred to. I'm on the board of a homeowners association in our development. And this has been an issue we've dealt with for going on 30 years. And we appreciate the board taking it under consideration and evaluating something that we've been trying to manage for a long time. To many homeowners spending tens of thousands of dollars on to remediate. So thank you for that consideration.
Mr. Lancelotto, if I can just get your address, please.
I'm sorry, sir.
Your address, please.
34 Heather Way.
Thank you. That's all I needed. I just
Thank
needed it for the, sorry, I didn't know you were still standing up there. I just needed it for the minutes. Anyone else have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, and there's no more board discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We'll now move down to section 17 ordinances, 17.1. Can I get a motion approving ordinance 2023-01 amendment to the stop sign ordinance to include Sawmill Road?
Oh, you want me to read the ordinance?
Yeah, it's actually gonna, yeah, I gotta do that first. Yeah.
Okay, ordinance number 2023-1, an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of Newtown, chapter 165, vehicles and traffic to add stop signs on Sawmill Road in both directions at Sugar Maple Drive and in both directions at Roberts Road. The Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown hereby ordains Section 1, the code of the Township of Newtown, chapter 165-1, stop signs designated, is hereby amended by adding the following sections to 165-1J, Sawmill Green Country. Subsection 10, east and west on Sawmill at Sugar Maple Drive. 11, east and west on Sawmill Road at Roberts Road as follows. Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after its approval in accordance with Pennsylvania law, approved by the board this 13th day of February 2023, and that's my motion.
Motion made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? The only thing I want to add to this is, this is, I think, something that's been discussed. I think some of the residents said for almost 20 years. We've done a couple of studies on Sawmill Road. We had multiple conversations with the neighbors about trying to come to some sort of safe resolution of this issue. We have sort of that long-term goal and fix, and then we have what we can do kind of in the interim. This is not going to end our commitment on making that a safe road for everyone. This is just one step in that process. So to the public comment that was delivered, we're not going to just approve this ordinance and wipe our hands and walk away. We're going to continue to monitor that street. We're going to continue to look at other ways that we can improve it moving forward. So I know that Stephen, for instance, said that he's been in multiple conversations over the last 8 years that he's been here. But as Supervisor Partridge and some of the residents said, this has been going on for, well over 10 to 15 years. So finally getting something moving on this. All right, any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We'll move back up to section 14, public hearing. Are you ready? You ready? Okay. So we will move to section 14.1, which is the conditional use hearing for Ooh La La Salon. As their attorney and witnesses start preparing to come up here, just to give a little bit of an overview process of how this is going to be done so that everybody in the public and those watching online understand what's going to happen. So after I get done going over this, we'll have the solicitor kind of do an overview to frame the issue, to kind of put everybody again in the public watching this, an overview of what you're about to see. We will call once this introduction is over for any party protestants. If there's any party protestants, you'll come up and identify yourself. The applicant will then present their case in chief. If there's party protestants, they will then have the opportunity to question the witnesses on what they testified to. The Board of Supervisors will then be able to question the witnesses again on what was testified to. And then we will also allow for redirect and potential recross. After that, the applicant will rest their case. Party protestants, if any, will put on their case in chief and go through the same process. After the party protestants arrest, we'll go off the record for public comment, and then we'll go back on the record for board deliberation and a vote. So if there's no questions from the board, we'll turn it over to the solicitor to frame it from the legal standpoint of why we have this here tonight and what we're going to start hearing. Mr. Sikora.
Right, so under the PRD, the planned residential development, which is that 220 some odd acre tract of land that has the mixed use developments, the apartments, the townhouses, the commercial, the offices. There's a provision in there that for the old existing buildings that were not constructed now, they could be used consistent with what the underlying zoning was, which is SU1. SU1 allows for a broad use of certain buildings as to the extent that they have historical value. They have used this ordinance for other historic properties. I think the gym was one of them. So it's not a concept that's foreign to what we're here for. So to use a historic property under this section 4 of the relevant zoning provision, I think it's 17288B4. It's by conditional use, meaning it's like a special exception, which is the zoning equivalent. This is what you do as the board of supervisors. It's a special exception for the board. You look at it, determine if it's appropriate under these criteria that are set forth in our code, and apply any conditions that you feel are appropriate. And that's why we're here.
So before you start, Mr. Edelman, I'll ask if there's any party protestants that want to be a party to this case. I didn't think we would see any tonight, but I wanted to ask anyway. So Mr. Edelman, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. Greg Edelman here on behalf of, actually, it should be co-applicants. Ooh La Hair Salon LLC, as well as the landowner. The entity is the Campus Investors Cottages LP, which is also a limited partnership affiliated with Equus Partners. We're here this evening, as Chair stated and as Mr. Sikora stated, with respect to a conditional use application for proposed hair salon to be occupying the existing Mary Lyon Cottage number 4 at the Ellis Preserve, specifically the first floor. Just by way of additional background, I think Mr. Sikora touched on how we are here. The PRD zoning, it's actually section 172-100.35 C11A, permits existing buildings to be adaptively reused for any purposes in the SU1. And then that directs us to the section that Mr. Sikora stated in the SU1 zoning, which is section 172-88B4, which permits any use of an existing building that is historic and will contribute to the preservation of such building. As this board is well aware, you did adopt a historic preservation ordinance recently. And as a result of that, we have gone through a little bit different of an actual process here, including going in front of the Historic Commission on January 24, 2023 to receive their recommendation. And then we also received the recommendation of the Planning Commission on January 26, 2023 for approval of the proposal. Before I go any further, I have some pre-marked exhibits that I'd like to hand out to the board and to staff. So if I can go off the record for a minute.
And we're going to get you a table too, Greg. So you guys can, so you can set up and be comfortable for your presentation.
I'll stay up here. Yeah, you can go right there. Okay, now. And then what's that? No, we'll switch. I'll go back and forth depending on who's going to testify here. Yeah, they have to be green, right?
Green.
Yep, green. Green is good. I won't put that on the record. If we can go back on the record, please let the record reflect that I handed out a packet of pre-marked exhibits They're labeled exhibits A1 through A7, and just for the record, A1 is a copy of the timestamp conditional use application, December 21, 2022. A2 is a copy of the deed for the property dated June 18, 2007. A3 is a historic resource impact study dated December 2022. A4 is a copy of Mr. Jason Korzak, his resume and curriculum vitae. Exhibit A5 is an overall plan. Exhibit A6 is a conditional use plan. And Exhibit A7 is the Township Engineer's January 2023 review letter. By way of a summary, the proposed application here is an adaptive reuse of the historic structure, the Mary Lyon Cottage on the property. I believe the address is actually 3831 Westchester Pike. The cottage for years since 1990 was used by SAP for extended stay guests and had approximately 8 or 9 rooms that were being used on a consistent basis prior to COVID. SAP turned the cottage back over to campus investors, to Equus, who is now proposing to use the first floor, which consists of approximately 2,750 square feet of floor area for the proposed hair salon. The second floor is being proposed in the future as office, but that's not before the board this evening for that application. In the packet that I handed out was a copy of the application that was filed. With the application that was filed was a copy of the special warranty deed showing that Campus Investors is the owner of the property as co-applicant, has standing to maintain the application. The salon is the proposed tenant for the property, but we did not include a copy of the lease given that Campus Investors is also a co-applicant. By way of further background, we have not brought a historic expert this evening. Just for background, since the historic resource is not being changed or altered in any way, we included a copy of the Exhibit A3, which was the Historic Resource Impact Study, December 2022, reviewed by our Historic Commission. It, as is common knowledge, contains information on the Charles Ellis School for Girls, which is the original use of the property and was found to be eligible for the National Registry of Historic Places as an important early 20th century social and education institution. In that report, there are pictures and photographs dating back to as early as 1920s showing the construction of this cottage, as well as more recent 1950 photos showing the cottage. So you can see that the cottage has been around for a significant period of time. And therefore, if you look at your historic preservation ordinance, while that's not a subject before this board, you'll see that this cottage would qualify as a Class 2 historic resource under Section 93(5)(b) as a boy of the Historic Preservation Ordinance. The proposed interior fit out, while it's not part of the conditional use, is actually bringing the cottage more in line with its original layout. The report will detail, or does detail, the demolition of the existing interior 1990s demising walls to open up the cottage interior closer to that original layout. Just for the board's edification, there is no proposed wall signage or window signage as part of this use. The signage for this property will likely have to go to a zoning hearing as part of a variance, and all that will be proposed at this time is consistent with the exterior monument signage that's out front of the other cottages as well in the Ellis Preserve. That will be a separate permit that will have to go through the township and likely require a variance given the SU1 regulations that limit, I believe it's 1 monument signage for the entire property. This property is condoed, so it is still one property. Everything is a unit, so therefore it would require some type of zoning relief. And whatever it is that we will propose will be reviewed by the township as part of that application. So we're not seeking any approval as part of this conditional use for any type of signage at this time. Sure.
To clarify for the historic requirement, because using the word Class 2, it meets the criteria for Class 2. This was not added to our zoning map as the official zoning Class 2 resource. but the way the code reads is that it qualifies if it's recognized in the comprehensive plan as a class 2 resource. And this was recognized in the comprehensive plan and the prior comprehensive plan as class 2 resources. So this isn't a zoning issue as to whether we've added it to the class 2 historical resource yet. But I just wanted to make that clarification since we're new to that historic ordinance.
Right, and for the record, we have treated it as a class 2 structure, which is why we subjected ourselves to the Historic Commission review process, as we felt it was appropriate and consistent with the township's intent under the Historic Preservation Ordinance to get that pre-conditional use review by the Historic Commission, so that this board would also have the ability to consider that recommendation in this conditional use hearing.
So you subjected yourself or you appeared before them? You said subjected yourself. Just make sure.
We did both.
I just want to make sure you're clear
We
on
actually
that.
did
And I,
both.
and I would make note for the board that the Historic Commission did review and they felt favorably upon this.
Yeah, we were provided that in the packet.
Okay, good.
Our packet, not the one that was given. us.
Actually, quick question. Did
Sure.
you say that the property would be eligible for being listed on the National Historic Register?
Yes, the Charles Ellis School for Girls, the entire property was deemed eligible for the National Registry. It's not on the National Registry, but it is eligible. And that was based upon a finding that, and let me just make sure I say this again, that it is eligible as an important early 20th century social and education institution. Correct. Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's the background as to why we're here. I have with me this evening, Mr. Jason Korzak. He's our professional engineer. I've included his resume as Exhibit A4. I'd ask the board to take notice of his expertise in civil engineering and site plan design, as he is a licensed and registered professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I believe he's appeared before this board on multiple occasions with respect to the Ellis Preserve Town Center. I'd ask that he be accepted as an expert in such fields.
No objection. He's admitted as an expert.
Great, thank you. Jason, you have a microphone in front of you, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and just for the record, you are the sorry, please go ahead.
I do. Sure, it's Jason Korzak. Korzak spelled Korzak.
And if it's okay with the board, can Mr. Korzak testify sitting down?
Awesome.
Great, thank you. Jason, I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit A5, which for the record is the overall conditional use plan. Looks like it's got a revision date in this packet of February 8, 2023. Is that correct?
That's correct, yep.
And did you prepare or supervise the preparation of this exhibit?
Yes.
Okay, and there's a lot of information on this plan, but if you could please tell the board where to look with respect to the subject structure that's before them this evening for the conditional use application.
Sure thing. If you let's start at the left side of the plan, just beyond the open area where the notes were proposed. That road that runs along the bottom of the page is Route 3, Westchester Pike. And you can see the intersection with Charles Ellis Drive. Charles Ellis Drive is running south to north up to Newtown Road, Route 252. Right at the corner of where the blank space is on the left-hand side, you can see the two-story firehouse. The cottage that the proposed salon use is proposed in is just to the northeast of that. It is building EB18. It has a total floor area of 4,475 square feet. And the first floor is the floor where the salon will be proposed. It has an area of 2,750 square feet.
Okay, and Jason, if we can then go to Exhibit A6, which for the record was identified as conditional use plan. Again, it has a revision date of February 8, 2023. Did you prepare and supervise the preparation of this plan?
Yes.
Okay, and if you can, please tell the board what it depicts and the information on the plan.
Sure. Okay, so this is a more blown up close up of the salon and the cottage. You can see the label once again, right in the middle of the footprint of the building. EB 18, 4,475 square feet. You see the firehouse to the southeast of the cottage, or I'm sorry, southwest. There is 15 parking spaces immediately adjacent to the drive aisle that runs along behind or on the front of the the cottage.
And what's the requirement for the overall parking for the proposed salon?
13 parking spaces.
Okay, so it is the parking that's shown comply with what's required?
Yes, it does. And we are adding an ADA parking space with the striped area. That parking space and ADA parking space in the loading area will tie to a crosswalk across that interior loop road and connect to a sidewalk that was recently installed. The front entrance to the salon sits up about 2 feet above the roadway. And that sidewalk was created so that there could be an accessible route from the ADA parking space to the front door of the cottage.
And do you have an understanding as to where the employees for the proposed business will be parking?
Yep, it's my understanding that the employees for the salon will be parking in the parking area behind the ballroom.
And if we go back to exhibit A5, the overall aerial, you
Yes,
could indicate where that's located, and I'm sure the board's not going to ask a question because I see heads looking up.
okay, yeah, so if you go back to exhibit A5, the ballroom is to the north of the salon of the cottage EB 18. The ballroom is labeled ED 12.
And is it your understanding that the ballroom has an agreement that it cannot host events other than on the evening hours? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so during the daytime, will that parking lot be available with adequate spaces for the proposed employees of the salon?
That's correct, yes.
And is it your understanding that the hours of operation for the proposed salon will be Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then Sunday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., in particular dealing with any special events that may occur in the area?
Real quick, Greg, sorry,
Yes.
and I'll let you answer that actually first, but
Yes.
can you give me those hours of operations again?
Sure, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sunday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Korsak, your answer was yes to that question, correct?
That's correct. That's my understanding for the hours.
Are there any exterior modifications to the property proposed other than what you've mentioned regarding the sidewalk?
There's no other exterior modifications, no.
Did the township engineer review the application?
Yes,
I'd like to show you what I've marked as exhibit A7, which is a copy of Pannoni's January 2023 review letter. Is this the township engineer's review?
correct.
Okay, and if we could go through, I believe there's only 3 comments in that review letter, correct? If we could go through each one of them very quickly, please.
Sure. First comment is regarding the requirement to have a conditional use hearing for the proposed salon use because it is in the cottage that is considered a historic or existing landmark. Number 2 was the comment that I addressed when we were going over the plan, that an accessible route shall be provided between the proposed accessible parking space and the building as required by the township code officer. The plan that I showed that on was exhibit A5, A6, excuse me. And that clearly shows where the proposed ADA parking space, stripe loading and stripe crosswalk would be located. It is the closest location that is accessible for a person in a wheelchair. So that is the closest parking spot we can provide. And then the last comment in the letter is the applicant shall obtain all required permits and approvals from the township codes and or sewer authority in connection with the proposed project, and we acknowledge that.
As part of your preparation for this hearing this evening, did you review the applicable conditional use criteria and standards under the township zoning ordinance?
I did.
And before we go into them in any detail, do you have an opinion as to whether the proposed application complies with those criteria or standards? And if so, what is your opinion?
My opinion, it does comply. This was an easier project that I work on more than others. Since we're not changing the exterior of the building and not adding any parking, everything is existing on the site today.
If we go to section 172-89B, as in boy, of the applicable conditional use criteria, there are three criteria. I believe the first is the recommendations of the planning commission. Do you believe that the application complies with the recommendations of the planning commission that were issued, I believe was January 25th?
Correct? Yes.
Okay. Number two is complying with the factors set forth in subsection A of that section. There are a number of them that the planning commission considered. If you could just go through them very quickly, and to the extent they even apply, please let us know what your opinion is. Number one, A, I think, is the first one on the list.
Whether the conditional use will have a detrimental effect on the health, safety, comfort, convenience, morals, or general welfare of the public, and in particular, the residents in the immediate vicinity of the proposed conditional use. Like I said previously, it's an existing building. We're not proposing any new buildings for this use. And it's an adaptive reuse to the existing cottage. B, whether the proposed conditional use in all structures, equipment, or materials used thereof or therein are readily accessible to police and fire protection. I believe it is. The fire department is right next door to this place, and there's plenty of entries around all four sides of the building. Whether the proposed conditional use will be such dimension, location, and character to be consistent with the scheme of development prescribed in the township comprehensive plan. It's the existing building. It's a very historic looking cottage, and we're not changing the exterior of it. So yes, I think we're meeting that. Whether the proposed conditional use will include traffic access ways which are adequate to provide safe ingress and egress to and from public streets and highways without undue congestion or to interfere with normal traffic flow with the township. I believe that is the case. The parking that the customers will be parking in is on the interior loop road of the development. It is not on Charles Ellis Drive, not as much traffic on this road. I believe that it complies with that. Whether the proposed conditional use makes adequate provision for safe and efficient. I'm sorry, I said that.
No, that's it.
Letter F, whether the site
You
of
missed
the,
the E.
oh, I missed E.
E.
Whether the proposed conditional use makes adequate provision for safe and efficient pedestrian and vehicular traffic circulation within the boundaries of the site proposed in the proposed conditional use. Once again, interior loop road, existing parking. All parking is off of Charles Ellis Drive. Letter F, whether the site of the proposed conditional use will be adequately drained without adversely affecting adjoining properties, and whether all slopes and grade on the site will be adequately protected against erosion. I do believe that's the case. We're not proposing any new improvements around the building or within the parking area. That area of the property drains to the large above ground basin just above Winding Way, and its impervious coverage is already included in the design of that basin. Letter G, whether the proposed conditional use will unduly interfere with or adversely affect natural resources such as streams, lakes, swamps, springs, wetlands, woodlands, slopes and grades, wildlife habitats, and trees over 8 inches in diameter measured 3 feet above the base of the trunk. No new improvements outside of the building. We comply with this. Whether merchandise, goods, products, articles, or equipment will be stored or displayed outside of a building or on a lot for which conditional use is proposed, and whether such items will be stored or displayed inside a building for which conditional use is proposed in a manner which renders such items visible from beyond the property line of such use. No materials, goods will be stored outside, and unless you're looking inside the windows, I don't think you're going to be able to see those beyond the property line. Whether the proposed conditional use will diminish the value of the proposed properties adjacent to or in the vicinity of the proposed conditional use. Once again, existing building, no new uses will not change. We comply with that. Whether, and Letter J, whether the proposed conditional use is physically suited to the site of such proposed use in view of topographical, soil, hydrogeological, and environmental characteristics of such site. We're not proposing anything different than what is already out there, so I feel we comply with that. Letter K, whether the proposed conditional use will cause an unreasonable and substantial interference with the use and enjoyment of properties to or in the vicinity of the proposed use. I don't believe that's the case. I think it's a very good complementary use to the other office buildings, other office uses that are around the vicinity of this project. This building. Letter M, whether the proposed conditional use will result in an unreasonable density of population or overcrowding of the land. Once again, the building's already there. I don't believe that's going to be the case. Letter N, whether the proposed conditional use will deprive adjacent properties of adequate light and air. I don't believe that's the case in the existing building. Letter O, whether the proposed conditional use will substantially burden existing sewerage facilities, schools, parks, utilities, and other public services. This building, the cottage was previously utilized for extended stay, I believe, from SAP. And the utility uses for that use would be similar to what I would anticipate the uses for the proposed salon. And then lastly, letter P, whether the proposed conditional use complies with all the sections of this article, particularly as related to the land development and subdivision standards. Once again, I do believe that's the case because based on all the previous protocol, we've obtained that so far.
And Jason, I think you may have skipped L, which was the same as K. It's whether the proposed conditional use is compatible with the existing use of the immediate vicinity. And what would be your testimony with respect to that criteria?
It is, the building is looks very similar in architecture to the other cottages nearby.
Section B also has another factor or element that states that whether the criteria for approval set forth in subsection C have been satisfied. That's the criteria for approval by Board of Supervisors. It has another 10 criteria. And maybe I can fly through them with you so you don't have to say them all. So C1 is whether the proposed use will have a detrimental effect on health, safety, comfort, convenience, morals, or welfare. Do you have an opinion as to that general criteria?
This use will not affect that, the health, safety, comfort, convenience.
And number 2 is whether the conditional use in all structures, equipments, and materials shall be readily accessible to police and fire protection. I believe you previously testified to that is not an issue as well, correct?
Correct.
Number 3 was that the conditional use will be of such dimension, location, and character to be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood. I believe you testified that this is consistent with the existing neighborhood because it is the existing neighborhood. Is that correct? Number 4 was the proposed conditional use should not create an increase in traffic of such character as to create a high probability of danger to health and safety of the community. Do you have an opinion as to whether the traffic generated by this proposed use is anything other than what we would normally expect from a similarly situated salon?
I don't.
Okay. Number 5 was, again, that the proposed use won't unduly interfere with or damage natural resources. And I believe you had testified previously, there's no development here, so no interference with any natural resources, correct?
Correct.
Number 6 was that the proposed conditional use shall not involve storage or display outside of a building. I believe you had testified that there isn't going to be any. Is that correct?
Correct.
Number 7 was that the proposed conditional use won't involve the storage or display inside a building of merchandise, goods, et cetera. Or that if it's display is visible, it won't be visible beyond the property lines. I believe you previously testified that that will not be the case, correct?
Correct.
Number 8, proposed conditional use shall not cause a substantial decrease in property values in the vicinity of the proposed use. I believe that you testified earlier that that will not occur. Is that correct?
Correct.
Number 9, you stated that the standard was the proposed conditional use, bless you, shall be physically suited to the land on which it's proposed. I believe your testimony was it's the existing structure, so there's no additional disturbance proposed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Number 10, the last one is the proposed conditional use shall not create an unreasonable and substantial interference with the use and enjoyment of properties in the vicinity of the proposed use. And I believe your testimony and opinion was that it will not. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's all I have for Mr. Korzak. I'd open him up to questioning from the board or staff at this time.
All right. I do have a few. Just to flesh this out. So for section 8 on that, from Mr. Kozak, you're not an appraiser though, right? So what are we going off of for that standard of the decrease in the property value? I'm not saying that I believe that it is. I'm just curious if you have a background on that.
I would also first object that that's even an enforceable criteria, but I had Mr. Korzak testify to it just because it's on the list. Use is permitted by zoning, and I don't believe that decrease in property values is a applicable objective standard that applies to zoning. Having said that.
Yeah,
Jason,
because it is.
question.
Understood.
Yeah, the building architecture is all remaining the same. I don't see why it would.
Got it. Mr. Edelman, are you having the operator testify as well or no?
I was not planning on it. However, if the board has questions, she is here.
Right.
Dawn Smith is here. She can answer some questions if you have any.
Because I do have a couple questions. I'll ask them to your engineer based off of what he testified to, and if you want to, make your applicant available, then we can ask to that. So, do we know how many employees are going to be here?
My understanding, 10?
And so 10 employees. You know what? I think I'm actually going to go down that rabbit hole, probably just asking her. So I'll just wait until you put her on.
Well, I was going to put her on if you want to ask. all
You want
the
me to
questions. And then I was going to call her.
Ask Mr. Edelman where the architect is. I don't see an architectural plan that shows what she's putting in here.
We're not required to submit a floor plan as a requirement.
Well, then how do I know how many chairs you're gonna have? How do I know how many people are gonna be in this facility? Because you're telling me you have 15 spots, but yet I'm looking at this and I'm seeing all these offices, they're all connected to this property, and you have 2 bathrooms, but no seats. Well, I can't make a judgment on this.
Under the ordinance, we're only required to comply with the parking that's required with respect to square footage. So we supplied that analysis.
All right, so let me ask this. So 10 employees.
Yes.
And the requirement for the ordinance is only 13, correct, for
Right.
parking spaces?
Which is why the 10 employees were parking in a different location. So they would not be taking up any of the.
Perfect. And your engineer alluded to the fact that where customers were parking versus where the employees are parking. So where are the employees parking?
So if we could go back to exhibit A5. And if you go up to ED12. I don't have a pointer.
Parking in the ballroom parking.
The ballroom parking in the rear, ballroom parking in the rear, there are, I believe, 27 spaces back there.
Okay.
And those spaces are available during the day. And if necessary, I can have Mr. Ford testify, but I can attest that there is a lease restriction in place that requires that parking to be made available. It's also part of the condominium association document. And there's the restriction that the ballroom can only hold events in the evening times. So therefore, that parking is available for use.
So let me ask you that, because I know that,
And weekends, sorry,
what was the last part?
and weekends as well.
What about on weekends? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I can have Mr. Ford testify to the clarifications. Since
Yeah.
he's the representative of the owner. If you'd like, just like to have him sworn at this time so we can answer that question in more detail.
John Ford, F-O-R-D-E. Correct.
And John, just for the record, could you please describe your involvement with respect to campus investors and Equus Partners?
Yes, I am the Senior Vice President of Development for Equus Capital Partners, who owns the campus.
John, just bring that microphone closer to you, or you can sit down too if you want, whatever you're more comfortable with. So what is he clarifying? Because I just couldn't hear what he was saying.
I was asking Mr. Ford to clarify the restrictions on the ballroom with respect to their operation hours and the ability to utilize the 27 spaces to the rear for the employee parking.
Got it.
So the Finley Ballroom operates in the evenings and on the weekends. So strictly during the week, evenings, Saturday and Sunday, they can have day weddings and so forth. And those restrictions were in place because of the existing tenants that were on campus.
Okay. But they do have
Shut the
events
park.
during, but they do have events during the day though, here and there, don't they?
Hmm.
I've been. to
There's
a few of them.
there's people there during the day.
At least, but they have events still. I mean, I've been to a couple of them for the business association, like when they have lunch things.
Well, they're not supposed to.
Okay,
So,
so the parking we're talking about is not the parking that's in front of the ballroom. We're talking about
No.
purely the parking that's in the back.
Correct, the 27 spaces in the rear.
And that spot, those spots are part of the ballroom, not part of the gym. Is that correct?
they're not part of the gym or the ballroom.
They're just,
They're just there. They're
okay,
empty. You could drive by there anytime during the day. They're empty.
well, I don't know if I agree with that, right? Because the people from the gym park there a lot too, so not empty
No,
all the
they
time.
park around the back.
And they also park there too, because there's an entrance to that parking lot.
They may park there in the weekends, but
Okay.
um,
So 10 employees, are they all stylists, Miss Patricia? I think it's, did I
Okay,
butcher
you
that
have
last
to- you have
name?
to Get her sworn.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Yes, I do. Yes, my name is Dawn Patrica. It's, yes, Pietryka.
Dawn, if you could maybe pull up the chair so you're closer to the microphone so that the record can capture your
Yes.
statements.
I'm just gonna ask you just normal questions, just like a conversation. So I know it can be a little intimidating. So 10 employees, all of them are stylists.
Front desk as well. So
Okay.
not all stylists.
So how many stylists versus front desk?
There's 9 in one front desk.
Got it. Are you also gonna have an esthetician as well, or is that part of that 9?
Yes, we will have an esthetician,
As part of that 9 or an additional one?
additional one.
So you're looking at, was that 11
11.
altogether? Okay. All right, so that's 11, and those 11, we're saying are gonna be parking over behind the ballroom parking lot, correct? Or correct, or
there's
John?
27 spaces there.
Okay. So for the 9 stylists, on average, how many heads are they touching an hour? Are they bringing in 2 an hour, 1 an hour?
It's
What do you-
usually 1 an hour.
Okay,
And we also work shift work.
okay,
So we're not all there together.
all right, so break that down, explain that to me.
So we do shifts of 9 to 2:30
Mhm.
and then 2:30 to close, which would be, well, it's actually 8 to 2:30 and then 2:30 to close, which
Got
is 9. And we take our last client around 7 PM.
So in those shifts, let's just use, because I'm guessing they're equal essentially, so
Mm.
shift 1 and shift 2, or shift A and shift B, just keep it
Yes.
easier. How many are working on shift A,
Uh,
ballpark?
4 to 5,
And that 4 or 5, again, I'm sorry to flesh it out, they're the stylists,
yes,
okay? Plus an esthetician,
yes,
okay? And then in shift 2, or B, excuse me, we'll say, is it safe to say 4 to 5 and one esthetician there too?
yes. Mhm.
Right, and for each of the stylists, the 4 to 5 stylists, that entire hour, they're only with one customer,
Yes,
even if it's a long process, they're still just with one person?
yeah, so there's double booking and not double booking. We currently don't double book, so we take one client at a time,
Okay.
each of us.
The double booking would be, again, going
If
back
you-
to that example.
Yes,
it's like a
double
cut and
booking,
color.
sorry, would be if you were taking 2 per like half hour.
Yep.
But we currently don't do that. We do one client at a time. So whether they're getting a 1-hour service or they're getting a color, which would be a 2 to 2.5 hour service, it would just be the one client.
Got it. Do you have, I know that you say you don't plan to do any double booking, or you're not doing any double booking now. Do you plan potentially to start doing any double booking in the future? If you can't answer that, you can tell me you can't answer that.
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
currently at this time.
Where are you located somewhere right now?
Yeah, so I'm actually in Booth Wynn. It'll be my 10-year anniversary coming up on March 19th. I've been in business. And I recently, in the past 2.5 years, moved to Newtown Square. I live in Lissitor currently with my husband, and I'm just looking to bring the business home and a little more room. My business has outgrown the space that I'm currently in.
That's awesome. Congratulations. I know it's not
Thank
easy,
you.
and I know it wasn't easy during
Yeah.
COVID. You guys were the last industry to open up with that
Yes,
failed staggered system that the governor established. So I'm happy to hear that you made 10 years.
thank you.
Okay. That's all that I have right now. I'm sure I'll have more as we go through this. If anyone else from the board has anything. Mike? Yeah. this is-
Architectural plan.
Yeah. Or, yeah. anything for the applicant or the engineer?
No, but I just want to make a point for the record. It's not really so much a question, but just, I know the packet indicates it's a class 2 resource, but I believe under the ordinance, it would be defined as a class 1 resource. I don't think that affects anything that you're trying to do here. I just wanted to make sure that was on
It
record.
doesn't. Is it really? Hang on a second. Time out. That's fine. Back on the record, I mean, we've obviously made a commitment to preserve the structure, so either way.
I guess my question is, building EB 17 and building EB 16 that are right adjacent to this property where you're showing the parking going over in front of EB 17. What are those functions now and how many people are in there?
Sure, John Ford can answer that, but I believe one of them's the Office for the Commonwealth Court Judge, which only has a couple of employees. But John, if you can highlight what's there now, what's open as well, I'm sure that would play into what Mike's talking about. Because of the other cottages.
Well, it shows on one of the drawings that you're going up into the parking in front of the EB 17. And I just know that there are people in those buildings. I just don't know what they are.
So the Commonwealth Court is in the first floor of the cottage closest to the conference center.
That's EB 16.
That's EB 16. So the judge is there, and I think she has 2 other employees. They have 4 dedicated spots.
And that's just pretty small. Is that a 2-story building too?
2-story building, similar size.
Well, then,
On the second floor, there's an accounting firm on the second floor with 3 employees, and there is an entrepreneur. I don't know what he does, but
John, make sure the microphone's not covered. Sorry.
he's in there too.
So there's 4 people on the up.
Is that the accounting firm that was down in the old house you tore down?
Correct.
Okay, so he has 3 people. What's in 17?
Nothing in 17. That was one of the, so the cottage we're here about tonight and that building were both given back to us at the beginning of 2020 by SAP.
Okay,
They were both bed and breakfast.
so then showing parking in front of 17 now doesn't really impact anybody there because there's nobody there, and then you're gonna come back before us if you go put people in 17?
Yeah, yes, we're required to come back.
So you're
on-
basically taking parking that would really traditionally be for 17, because you're kind of sliding up in front of him. And then the question is the office, that's why I said I can't see with the plan. You show a whole new office on top of the salon area. Is that? You have to go through the salon to get to that? I'm trying to understand, because it doesn't look like there's an outside entrance. So when that first, whoever moved in the second floor there,
There's a side entrance.
decided, so that.
Yeah.
And then all those seats, so that personal park in the back in the parking lot you're saying with the 27 spots. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, I have more parking today than I know what to do with.
Well, no, but I'm just talking in that general.
Well,
I know you have it if you want the other side of the garage, yes.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that what we're seeing?
We're marketing the building. I'll have to come back, if we get any.
No, but what I'm saying is you're saying that's a side, I'm just trying to understand, because like I said, I can't see the plan.
Yep.
So you're saying that entrance is like, kind of alleviates itself towards that parking lot, right? The back?
So the entrance to the second floor
Yeah.
is between EB 18 and EB 17.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
that sidewalk can allow
Yeah.
those people to go out there.
Yep.
So if you get a tenant and this young lady has this salon open, she's using those spots that we designated on this plan in gray. And her employees are already parking back there, then it makes sense that those people from upstairs will park in the back too. Well, you're gonna have to have a negotiation. No, what I'm saying though is, John, you're gonna have to have a negotiation. All her customers are coming in the front door, because her door's on the front and these guys are on the side.
I mean, that's.
Does that lead to
Yeah, that's
to
the
reality?
exists at the upper three cottages that we.
I'm just trying to understand because I can't see the plan.
And Mike, we're gonna probably have to look for some type of office tenant or some other tenant that, we can meet the parking demand, given that this is an adaptive reuse. Given that, everything is tight here, right in the immediate area, well, it's
Well,
oversight wide.
that's what I'm saying. If
Yeah.
you want to walk across campus, if you want to be athletic, that's fine. But I think most women that want to do their hair not want to walk across campus.
And that is why we're not seeking any approvals for the rest of that building or
Okay.
the building next to it at this time. We're gonna have to come back with something that works for those future tenants as well as the overall parking that we can provide in the immediate vicinity. So
Okay.
it's a little tricky when we get into the adaptive reuse scenario here, limiting impervious coverage, not wanting to add more parking right there, keeping that green as much as possible, but
Right.
yet still allowing for some type of.
Well, I just want to
adaptive
understand,
use.
since you don't have a tenant and then next door is not tenanted yet either, it makes sense why you're going up towards the front of that place. Because
Correct.
they'll come back. But I just know from my people in my family, I have 3 people that go to the hair salon. They're not gonna walk
No,
across campus after they get
No,
their
they-
hair done. They're getting in the car and making sure nothing goes wrong.
that is correct.
And I would think, obviously, this is a high-end place. It's not gonna be the same.
Right, that's why we're having the employees park.
I actually have a question because there's gonna be overlap with when there is an event at Finley. So, and I know that people park outside of there when they're going to an event.
Right.
So how does that work?
So during those time periods, the front areas of the cottages are empty because it's only office tenants or empty space, so you get additional space.
But the salon is not. The salon
Salon's-
hours are gonna,
I'm talking about you have the additional parking in front of EB 16 and EB 17, which won't be used on the weekend times because they're not weekend users.
But I think what I think Supervisor Roberts Lightcap is getting at is that if the time with the salon and Finley overlap with an event.
Mhm.
Though those tenants might not be there, the individuals who are at the ballroom might be there, plus the additional people who are parking for the salon. I think that's what you're getting at.
That is why I'm answering that the spaces along this side will then be open. So you can balance depending upon what's being filled. If the catering, if the banquet hall, sorry, has people in that back parking lot, even though it's not specifically designated for them. You won't have office tenants, like the Commonwealth Court won't be, the 4 spaces there won't be being used.
We're waiting for an opinion, she might be,
I'm like, we know that, right, Leonard?
she might be.
That's why you don't become a judge. You
Yeah.
don't work Saturdays.
and John, okay, I get it. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then what happens when the other facility opens, the other catering facility? Do they have enough park? Like they
Yeah,
won't,
it's
it
totally
won't,
different.
I know they're on the other side.
And there'll be garage, there's I believe a parking deck garage and a surface parking there as well. So that's not gonna come over here to park.
Yeah, the catering hall, the numbers for the catering hall are factored into the overall parking for phase 2.
And then where do people park when they do go to Finley in the existing? They park in that. Do they park in the gym? The gym's tight. When I used to go to the gym, it used to be tight. And then, I mean, is there thoughts to reuse? And I'm sorry, I'm going off topic. I'm just trying to think of. Because you guys still have that Sunoco space to that office space. So
So
with that parking garage is there.
the average wedding at Finley averages around between 40 and 45 cars. And they have valet parking.
Okay,
And what we also do is cone off areas. So that when a wedding's coming in, the valets will be there. Most of the people, not all, of them, but most of them valet.
okay.
And so we've instructed Finley that the parking area over by building B and H, nobody's there on the weekends.
right.
The valet cars there.
Okay. I mean, you guys are not gonna do anything to mess your project up, I know, so I'm just curious. It's questions that people ask.
Correct, understood.
I just ask one other question to Ms. Patrica, right?
Yeah.
Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
For your esthetician, what is that, customer rotation? Are they also doing about an hour? Or is that about a half hour?
About an hour.
About an hour?
Mhm.
Okay. And that 13 spaces includes the one ADA parking spot,
Correct.
or is it 13 plus an ADA?
There's 15 parking spaces total in that bank of parking. 13 would be required for the lawn, and that 188 is
Based off of the square footage of the building? Got it.
based on the number of parking spaces provided for that.
Understood. Okay. I mean, I do feel like we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul when you look at the grand scheme, right? And I think you're acknowledging that. I mean, that's the concern. I mean, it's good she's getting in now potentially, right? Because she'll be able to have that established parking already, but then once you start getting down to the other ones,
So I know John will probably shoot me when I say.
he looks like he wants to do it
when I
now.
say that the other places tend to lean themselves towards office. However, we're going to be using a lot of shared parking analysis. If we want to bring in something different, we're also going to have to be coming up with some creative arrangements. I mean, remember, the idea here is to make these historic structures
Yeah.
continue to be usable.
Yep.
Parking's always the issue when you get into that, because you don't want to create more paving, you don't want to change the way it looks, but yet you want it to be functional and financially feasible, continuing to move forward. So we are going to have some flexibility built into the leases. We're going to have to be creative with how we reoccupy the rest of those spaces that are vacant.
Understood.
I think what was important, what John told me, which I didn't know, is I haven't been to a wedding there. They have valet parking.
Yeah.
So right away, you can control that. That would have been good in the beginning.
Well, I wasn't talking about the catering or the.
Well, no, but it's all kind of related.
When you look at the whole scope of the thing,
I
yes,
know when I go there now, I've been to as many events there, I park right in front of her place.
right. Right, and at that time of night, what time is it? 7, 8 o'clock?
He's big on the cocktail hour. He's there first.
I was gonna say.
They're still putting food out when he gets to the weddings.
5 or 6 o'clock at night. What I'm saying is as long as the catering place has valet people, then that takes away some of the concern on my end anyway, because then they can park the car a little farther away.
Yes. Understood.
Okay, any other comments from the board for the engineer, Mr. Ford or Ms. Patrica? Mr. Edelman, do you have anything else you want to add?
Nothing further other than moving for the admission of exhibits A1 through A7.
They are admitted.
The township's proof of advertising will make township one.
And then I just make a request that you approve the conditional use as submitted. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
No problem. So we'll go off the record for public comment at this time. And if there's anyone here who wants to provide any public comment, just come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. I'll grab the sides of that podium. Looks like Mr. Edelman got it kind of sweaty. You gotta watch, you're a little nervous up there.
It's dry.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go back on the record since there is no public comment. And now we'll turn it over to if there's anyone else from the board who wants to provide any additional comments or deliberation, and we'll move. Anybody have anything else they want to add? Comments they want to put on the record? If not, if there's a motion, we'll entertain a motion.
Okay. So,
You make a motion?
yeah. I'd like to make a motion for approval of the conditional use for Ooh La Salon. Motion for approval with the following conditions as recommended by the Historic Commission Review and Planning Commission Review. Recommended conditions incorporating section 4 mitigation factors from historic impact study. 1, document all material, old and new, to be removed. Measure drawings and floor plans completed should also be part of this documentation. Documentation should include photographs of all material to be altered, floor plans, and measure drawings. Copies of said documentation should be provided to the township at Newtown Township. 2, reuse as much of the original wooden flooring and floor or baseboard molding as possible. New floor molding should closely match existing floor molding as found in the cottages, including cottage number 4. 3, lighting. Any associated lighting should be soft, such as soft LED or similar lighting to be more consistent with the historic lighting of the building. 4, signage must be freestanding and consistent with the current building signage and in line with the heritage of the building. Signs should not be placed on or attached to the building. 5, further board recommendations here. 5, do not alter the
I have recommendations written, would be conditions.
conditions, further board conditions. 5, do not alter the exterior appearance of the building as set forth in the historic impact study. 6, vegetation screening of back porch / portfolio area facing Charles Ellis Drive to buffer view of break activities. That was number 6. And that would complete my motion at this point in time. Do we have any additional conditions that just check in that any of the board members want to incorporate into this motion?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously, and welcome to Town Square.
Thank
Great.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you again, everyone, for your time.
And there'll be an order coming.
Yep.
Decision.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move down to board comment. If any board member has any board comment, we'll move to public comment. If there's anyone here who wants to provide any public comment, feel free to come up to the podium. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't commit all that to memory. That's okay.